Hey, Dr. Amber here for another episode of Dr. Amber's Know and Grow podcast. So good to be with you all this morning. If you are watching, wait a minute, did I say this last week? How I got my braids? Yep. I'm just too excited. Like, clearly, I had my braids last week. And so I've already said this, but I was literally about to say the same thing. So I'll just go ahead and say it. If you're watching on YouTube, you see that I have my braids back. And I don't know, there's just something about when I get my braids, I just feel so like just like a goddess or something. I don't know. So either way, good morning, y'all. I hope y'all are having a good week. Hope you had a good weekend. I'm excited to be back and chatting with you today. I'm excited about today's episode because it is reflective of um, this big thing that's happening in my life right now, and it is the upcoming release of my very first book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation. So I've been thinking about the fact that, this book is coming. This book will be released in about 2-ish months. And so there's a lot to do in the meantime. There's a lot coming up to help get excited about it and help spread the word about it. But I wanted to definitely get back to talking about the book more on the podcast and sharing a little bit about what to expect and also getting you guys excited about it uh, or getting you all excited for the book as well. So, today's episode is going to kind of highlight one of the chapters in the book a bit, and I hope that you find it helpful. But first, let's talk a little bit about the book so that you can ground yourself in, okay, what are we talking about? And then we'll get into the topic. So, of course, the book is A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, breaking the cycles of dysregulation and mastering emotions for parents and children. And so I'm so excited for this book. And really, this book is for the person who knows that they want to change the tone of emotional health and wellness for their children and their families, but maybe they realize they didn't get the same when they were a child, right? Or maybe you have toddlers or you have had toddlers and you realize, like, I want to be able to help my child regulate themselves, regulate their feelings, regulate their big emotions, but I struggle with it because I don't even know how to do this myself, right? You realize that as you were trying to help your child understand their emotions or cope with big emotions, you're struggling with it because you can't even cope with your own. Maybe you realize that there's some gap, whether it's with skills or information or tools or capacity that just is not allowing you to show up and be the role model that you want to be for your child because you yourself still struggle with your own big emotions, but then also struggle with how to regulate yourself when you are upset or when your child's upset. This is who book is for. This book is also for the person who maybe realizes that they still have some healing to do with regard to their own inner child, as far as not getting what you needed when it came to your own feelings. Maybe you were invalidated as a child. Maybe you were made fun of because of your emotions. Maybe you just didn't have anyone to teach you or model for you how to handle yourself when you get angry, worried, scared, frustrated, mad, right? These things sound so basic, but when you really start to talk to people about it, you realize, oh, yeah, it's basic, but a lot of basic things are missed for many adults. And I realized that in the process of writing this book because to start the book, I did a research study. It was called The Parents, what self parents, wow, the Parent Self-Regulation research study. I did that in the summer of 2023. And really, I wanted to talk to as many parents as possible about their experiences of feeling dysregulated, feeling overwhelmed, feeling frustrated, feeling overstimulated, and what they do with that, how they cope with it. That was super helpful because if I didn't do that research study first, I would not have been able to really speak to, as well as I do in the book, speak to the actual experiences of parents with regard to feeling dysregulated. I was able to speak to 175 parents about their experiences, and thank God that people were so willing and so open and transparent about this because let's be real. Sometimes it's hard to talk about things like this. It's hard to admit when you are struggling as a parent. It's hard to admit that you have yelled at your child or that you have lost your cool or your control, that you lose your temper. It's hard to admit that you maybe ignore your children because you just don't have the capacity to think or talk to them in any given moment, right? Those are very real things. They happen as parents. And I am grateful for the 175 parents who agreed to share these experiences with me, because it helped me to even see even more. So like, oh, it's not just me. It's not just my clients. It's a lot of people that really struggle with this. So this book is for everyone, because I bet that everyone who is a parent has had an experience where they wished they could have responded better. They wish they could have reacted better to a situation involving their kids. They wish that they could be modeling something different with regard to how to handle yourself or how to cope with your feelings. I'm excited for this book to illuminate some of that for you all. I'm so glad that I said yes to writing this book as well. I shared this somewhere else. I can't remember if I shared it on the podcast. I think I was doing an interview with the Love Out Loud podcast with Mo Ari and Tiffany, and I'll be on their podcast soon. So shout out to them. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast. We talked about the book, and I was just explaining, like, when the publisher first reached out to me about writing this book, I wanted to say yes because I wanted to write a book, but I was so nervous about the topic because I personally have really struggled with feeling dysregulated as a parent. Like, I have absolutely yelled at my kid one too many times. I have absolutely lost my temper because I was so overwhelmed. I have absolutely zoned out one too many times because I was just so overstimulated and didn't have the capacity, and I, at the time, felt like I was deeply struggling with that. So it was just so interesting that this opportunity came for me to address something for other people that I also was struggling with. I'm so glad I said yes to that, because now I get to help so many of you, but also I helped myself. And my gosh, like, when I think about who I am as a parent now versus a year ago, versus 2 years ago, I'm so proud of how far I've come. And I don't think that I would be able to say that if I didn't take the time to write this book. So I think that says a lot. Like, this book, I had no idea how much it would change my life. Thinking about the concepts, writing about the concepts and the information, creating the strategies, all that I used myself, and realized, wow, this is helpful. And I'm different. And I'm so grateful to be this different version of me as a parent that I can feel proud of, and that I can better role model for my children, how to manage their emotions and how to deal with feelings. So I'm so grateful and so excited. So today I was thinking about, okay, what part of the book do I want to share? And I actually want to share a piece of the book that it comes from chapter 9 of my book. And so the title of that chapter is The 5 Biggest Concerns of Dysregulated Parents. So I wanted to talk about this chapter because it really highlights what are the biggest concerns that people who do find themselves dysregulated have about it, right? So let's say you're a parent, you often realize, or now because you've been listening to this podcast or following me on Instagram, you realize, like, whoa, I am dysregulated. Like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overstimulated. I don't know how to handle my feelings when I'm triggered by some parenting experience, or I don't know how to respond well when my child is upset, and I feel myself doing the things my mom or my dad used to do. Like, you finally are starting to realize that, right? So then it's like, okay, well, how do you feel about it? And you might be wondering, okay, well, why do we care about that? Like, why do we care about how you feel about being dysregulated versus just fixing it? I think it's important to care about how you feel about it, because often that is the motivator that gets you to make the changes or to utilize the strategies you need to make it right. So it's kind of like your why. A lot of our whys are rooted in our big fears and our concerns. And that's what I found when I talked to many of these parents. You know, their biggest motivation for no longer wanting to feel so dysregulated because of all of these things that I'm about to mention right now. There were some really big concerns that they had about what happens if I don't get this right? What happens if I continue to be dysregulated and, I never end up being the parent that I've always wanted to be? Or what happens if I'm never able to show up for my kids in the ways that I want to because I'm so bogged down with like feelings and anxiety and tension and overwhelm, right? So I want to talk through these 5 biggest worries that these parents had. And then for each worry, I got my notes here, I'm looking at them. For each worry, I'm going to read a passage from my book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, that addresses that specific worry. Okay. So that's the structure of today. We're going to talk about 5 biggest worries of dysregulated parents. And then for each one, I'm going to address it with a passage from the book. And specifically, it comes from chapter 9 of the book. Okay. Are you all ready? I hope you're ready. So sit back, relax, because this is kind of like another sample reading from the book. So, 5 biggest worries of dysregulated parents. Number 1, am I inadequate as a parent? Am I inadequate as a parent? I forgot to mention that these worries are going to be in the form of a question. And it's because a lot of our worries that come up around parenting, we're questioning ourselves, we're doubting ourselves. And this was one of the biggest worries that I found these parents had that I talked to in our research study. Am I inadequate as a parent? They felt inadequate because, again, these feelings that they were having of feeling overwhelmed, feeling dysregulated, feeling frustrated, feeling anxious. It felt like they could not cope properly. It felt like they couldn't show up in the ways that they needed or in the ways that their child needed them to show up. It felt like a big barrier that they couldn't overcome. And so they started to ask, well, am I inadequate as a parent? Am I a good parent? Is essentially what that question is. It's really painful and scary and embarrassing, shameful to be in the place where you're asking yourself, am I a good parent? Am I inadequate as a parent? And again, y'all, you would be surprised how many of us have been there. Hopefully temporarily, but there are so many people who really question that, and a lot of it is because they are just struggling with how to manage life and stressors, right? So I pulled this passage from the book to address this question of, am I inadequate as a parent? Your biggest fear may be that you are inadequate as a parent, and because you are inadequate, you may cause harm or not properly equip your child with the tools they need to navigate the world around them. However, instead of believing that you are inadequate, I challenge you to understand that as a parent, every moment with your child is a learning opportunity. Even the mistakes and the mishaps are there to teach you more about your child and more about yourself. Therefore, you are not inadequate, and instead, you're learning to navigate a world that often feels overwhelming, tiresome, and full of high demands. You are learning more and more every day, and you have grown far more than you realize. So I hope that comforts anyone who has questioned if they are inadequate as a parent, especially if it's because you're feeling dysregulated. I hope that brings you some peace and also encourage you to utilize the tools around you, whether it's through support from other people or the tools in this very book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, that can help get you to the other side of this. Number 2, am I setting a bad example for self-regulation for my kids? Am I setting a bad example of self-regulation for my kids? This is also a good question because, again, going back to that research study where I talked to 175 parents, many of them were worried, well, if I can't get this right, how will I ever show my kids how to get this right? If I can't handle when I'm frustrated, if I can't handle when I'm overwhelmed, if I can't handle when I'm feeling anxious or angry, how will my kids ever learn it too? Am I setting a bad example because they see me responding or reacting in certain ways? Okay. Again, so many people find themselves in this situation. And it's funny, this is something we often question because parents are humans. That is just, if anything, me writing this book has further solidified for me that yes, I can do a lot of work for myself and I can, work on my parenting and all of that. But like at the end of the day, I'm still a human. I'm still going to continue to make mistakes. Yes, I can become a parenting author and, a parenting expert in my field and all of that. But guess what? I'm still going to make mistakes because I am a human. All right. And so oftentimes when we find ourselves making mistakes, or if we feel like we're making too many mistakes, it's like, well, am I setting a bad example for my child? So if you feel like you've been questioning that of yourself, I want you to listen to this. Again, another passage from the book. You may fear that your children will learn bad habits and negative ways of coping with their own challenges as a result of your bad examples. But what if you're not setting a bad example at all? What if instead you are showing your children that you are human and so are they? I urge you to see that as a parent, it is okay to make mistakes, and even more important, for your children to see you making mistakes. This normalizes the process of learning and helps them to have compassion for themselves when they make too many mistakes, too. So, no, you are not setting a bad example, but instead you are demonstrating the beauty in humanity, what it means to have compassion for yourself in the process. So, it's important to remember and honor our humanity, especially as we are learning a new skill, especially as we are learning something new. So, again, I encourage you, if that was something you're struggling with, I hope that that brings you some peace and some comfort and encourages you to keep pushing forward with challenging yourself to learn some new ways of being as a parent, learning some new ways to show up, learning some new tools for self regulation, which you can do in the book. So, I hope you pre order the book so that you can keep moving forward in this journey. Number 3, am I repeating a pattern of parenting that I grew up with? I'm going to say that one again. Am I repeating a pattern of parenting that I grew up with? This is also, again, I found through that research study, a very legitimate concern and fear for myself as well. I think specifically for millennials and Gen Z who are parenting right now, there is something about our level of awareness with regard to what we received as children and from our parents, and what we also want to give to our children and our parents, specifically around emotional health, emotional well being, mental health, mental well being, relationship attachment, right? And with that, we are highly sensitive, maybe even a little hyper focused on, okay, am I doing the things that I know I didn't like or enjoy as a child to my children? Am I recreating or um, just am I showing up as my parents in this situation when I know I want to do something different? Right? That's the question. So I want to read this passage to you if this is something that you are struggling with. You fear repeating a pattern of parenting that you dislike, and that you may become just like the parent that you've always feared, resented, or now have complicated feelings for because of how they parented you. However, what if you're not repeating that pattern at all? Could you instead see that you are working through a courageous process of unlearning that can take years? Many people are unable to break generational cycles because it's difficult. And yet, you are still choosing to work through yours every single day. Therefore, no, you are not repeating a pattern of broken parenting. And instead, you have committed to a lifelong process that is challenging and has already begun to pay off. Your children have already benefited from you and your commitment to create a new parenting norm. And they will continue to benefit because you are choosing to do something different. Amazing. I love these passages because it also is helping you to have a different perspective for what you're experiencing. And that is so important when you are going through a challenge, when you are going through a struggle and you're wanting to make a change or make a shift, right? If we are viewing it in this very negative way or in this way that demoralizes us or doesn't shed light on any of our strengths, it's really hard to change. Instead, we have to shift the focus and see, okay, well, where are the strengths here? Or how can I see this from a different perspective so that I can then feel more motivated, feel more encouraged, and move in the direction that I want to go? So, again, I hope that that passage did that for you as well, because this is a lifelong process. And I hope that this book will help to take you on that lifelong process and also help you realize, like, this is not something that's one and done. These are tools, these are strategies, these are reframes, these are perspectives that you have to carry with you in your parenting journey. And if we're lucky, it'll be a long one. We want our parenting journey to be long because you don't stop parenting even when your kids are adults, right? So I hope that that brought you some comfort, some peace, and some encouragement to keep on your journey. Number 4, how will I ever learn to self-regulate when times are always hard? I felt like this was a very interesting perspective as well, because essentially what it does is it highlights how challenging parenting is, right? It's like not only parenting, but just being an adult. So it's like adulting and parenting all at the same time. There's so many things going on. If you're working, there's work stuff. If you're trying to manage your health, there's health stuff. If you have a family, maybe you have your parents or aunts and uncles, siblings that need help, you're taking care of them. Not to mention your whole family you created. Like, there's always things going on. And for many people, that can feel really overwhelming. Managing the events or the task of life, in addition to being a parent, feels impossible sometimes. That's why things have to shift in your priorities, or sometimes things fall off the priority list, right? So the question here is, how can I ever get this right if I am in this continuous cycle of struggle? Or if things always feel hard, where will I ever get the capacity or the space to actually work on this? Right? A very legitimate question. And so I want to read this passage that I hope will bring you some clarity around this. You fear that you will never be able to self regulate consistently because life will always have its challenges, and because life will feel so daunting. You may always struggle with the same pattern and cycles of dysregulation. However, instead of believing this, what if you soon realize that while life is definitely always going to have its challenges, you are capable of picking up a new strategy and tools to manage the difficulty along the way? Instead of focusing on the hard times and the negative outcomes, what if you shifted your focus to every new skill that you might develop with each difficult time, including the difficulties that come in parenting? This can be the case for you when it comes to how you begin to learn new ways to self regulate and manage your own big feelings. I know that you have the capacity to grow, to learn, and to develop new skills that will continue to benefit you in these hard times that are sure to come your way. So, what I love about that is essentially it says you don't have to wait for the perfect time to work on yourself. You don't have to wait for there to be quiet around you to meditate, right? Like, that's a perfect metaphor for people who are trying to learn how to meditate. It's like, well, it's loud outside and there's still so many things going on in my head, and I don't have a quiet space to sit. You don't have to wait for quiet to practice meditation, because actually the noise helps to boost your skill, because the point is to focus on whatever it is around you, even if it is noise. So that's what I want you all to realize if you're struggling with that piece. You know, life is so hectic, life feels so chaotic. There's always something. When it rains, it pours. But guess what? These are almost like opportunities to practice, right? Like, how could you practice managing dysregulation if you never get a little dysregulated? Right? Like, how can you practice utilizing self-regulation skills if you are not getting a little frazzled, right? Like, these are opportunities to learn, opportunities to grow. These are opportunities to put these tools into place. And guess what? You don't even have to come up with the tools or the strategies, because I did that part for you. So really, all you have to do is utilize the information that is being given to you in this book and apply them to those hard times. That's it. You don't have to come up with anything new. That hard work has already been done for you. So embrace these moments, embrace these hard times, because they are the perfect opportunity to practice. Okay. If you can meditate in a room full of children, you absolutely can meditate when it's quiet. So why not do it the hard way first? Okay. All right. Number 5, the last biggest concern of dysregulated parents. Will my dysregulation cause a lasting impact on the relationship with my family or their mental health? This one is so sensitive, and as I'm saying it, I'm feeling the chills in my body because this is also a big concern that I've had as well. You know, all the times that I've messed up, all the times that I've raised my voice, all the times I've lost my temper, all the times I didn't handle feeling overwhelmed well. Did that mess something up? Did it mess up the relationship between me and my child? Do they see me differently now? Can this be repaired? Right? That is such an honest and innocent question that I think so many parents have. It also reminds me of the guilt that often comes when we make a mistake as a parent with our children specifically. The guilt that, I know what I said or what I did wasn't the best. I know that was not right. And I feel so terrible because we love our kids so much, right? But that's the thing, like, and this is some this actually needs to be another whole thing. Love doesn't mean that you're always going to get the things right. I love my kids so much and I've made so many mistakes, okay? My mistakes don't mean I don't love my children. I love them more than anything. And yes, I still make mistakes. And same for you. I know how much you love your children. I know how much you love your babies. And guess what? You're going to still make mistakes. And those mistakes you made in the past, those really big ones that you still feel so terrible about, have nothing to do with how much you love your children. I know that. And I wrote this book for you because I know that there are people out there who are trying so hard to get it right, and because maybe they didn't receive it as a child, or because no one told them how to feel their feelings or how to express themselves or how to handle challenges. They're struggling right now because parenting is a real fucking challenge. So I see you. I see how much you care about your kids. And this question of, will my dysregulation cause a lasting impact on the relationship with my children or their mental health? I get why you're asking that. And so I want to read this passage to bring you some peace and comfort and encouragement. You fear that every time you lose control and succumb to your dysregulated state, you are hurting your family. You worry that you will yell, scream, snap, or become irritated with your children one too many times, and it will permanently damage the relationship and bond you've worked so hard to cultivate with them. However, you are bigger and much greater than your mistakes. Additionally, while ruptures in relationships can hurt, especially those ruptures with your children, repair matters so much more and has the power to heal any rupture that may have occurred. Remember that in parenthood, you will make mistakes. Even after you've read this entire book front to back 10 times over, you will continue to mess up or say the wrong things because you are human. And that doesn't necessarily inherently harm your children. Rather, the disinterest in repair and lack of accountability is what can cause long term damage. Your effort to understand yourself and to do something different, especially by using this book as a tool, is an indication that you want to change and that your relationship with your children matters greatly. Therefore, focus less on the mistakes and huge emphasis on repair. How can you acknowledge that something has happened, repair the hurt feelings, and then move on even better? I trust and believe that you are capable of that beautiful reality. Wow. That brought me peace. It was like I didn't even write it. It was like I was reading to myself. I don't know about you all, but that really comforted me because it's true. We're so much bigger than our mistakes. And I think oftentimes when we make a mistake or we feel like we're not doing the right thing, there's so much focus on the thing that we did, but we forget that, hey, there's this opportunity to repair. We get to fix it. And oftentimes when we fix things with our children through an apology, through acknowledgement, through helping them cope with the feelings that are coming up for them, we prepare even stronger. It heals the bond. It's like this powerful thing that just makes the relationship even better. So guess what? It was never the mistake. It was never the thing you did. That's not the issue, but rather, just like the passage said, a disinterest in acknowledging what happened or lack of accountability. But guess what? I know that that is not you. You're listening to this podcast because you are interested in wanting to repair what happened. You are interested in taking accountability. And that is the thing. That right there is where the power is. And so I just want to encourage all of you, if you have had any of these 5 concerns or all of them, I got you. There is help. Help is coming. Help is on the way. And I know that you can get to the point where you're feeling better as a parent because you know how to better regulate yourself, your feelings, your physical body, your emotional self, your mental health. It can be regulated. And I'm so excited for you all to pre-order my new book, A Parent's Guide to Self-Regulation, released June 18th. But until then, you can definitely pre-order your copy on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes & Noble. It's basically everywhere at this point. So pre-order your copy so that you can receive it on June 18th and we can read it together. So excited for this. I hope you all enjoyed this today. Again, head to my website, www.dramberthornton.com. You can pre-order your book there, or wherever you want to buy your books, you can buy it there. I hope you all enjoyed this episode today. Give me a shout out on YouTube. Let me know what was your favorite part in the episode, and also maybe what was the biggest concern for you. If you're listening on a podcast app, make sure to leave me a rating, 5 stars, and a review of how you enjoyed today's episode. And also share this episode with someone else so that they can know that they too can shift some things in their parenting so that they are no longer as dysregulated. And then also pre-order the book for them. Okay. Pre-order it as a gift to them. Maybe send them the link and just say, hey, I'm going to get this book for you, or hey, you should get this book. Ask them to get it for someone else. I think we need to really spread the word about this book because so many of us are really wanting to shift things in our parenting that are rooted in our emotional health and well-being. And so it's so important. So I cannot wait for you all to enjoy this book. Okay. I hope you all have a great week and we'll talk soon. Bye.